everybody, and welcome to Attendance Bias. I am your host, Brian Weinstein. Before we get started with today's episode, I just want to remind everyone that if you enjoy this podcast, you can support the show by leaving a rating and a review of it wherever you get your podcasts. You can also visit www.buymeacoffee.com/attendancebias and donate anything you can to keep the podcast going. Now, on to today's episode. 2009 was the most exciting year to be a Phish fan. After years of waiting and hoping while band members were in their various solo outings, good news and bad news about each band member, and the jam band scene seemed more inclusive than ever, Phish returned to the stage. After their Hampton comeback in March, they hit the road for a huge summer tour, and expectations were out of control, to put it mildly. At the time, lots of longtime fans were overwhelmed with excitement of Phish being back, clean, sober, and cohesive, but we were also wondering, where are the jams? But with time comes perspective, and we are lucky today to have a returning guest, Derek Hill, to explain why today's show, June 9th, 2009, at the Asheville Civic Center, and 2009 in general, deserves its due, deserves respect, and deserves attention instead of being brushed aside as the band's just getting back on their feet. You may remember that Derek was previously on Attendance Bias to tell about another show from 2009, the memorable Hartford show from August 14th, when the band busted out several Gamehenge favorites, a killer version of Ghost, and even played Psycho Killer by the Talking Heads. That show was an instant classic, but today's show from Asheville was a bit more under the radar. It was early on in Phish's 3.0 return and had several features that would become trademarks of the early 3.0 era. Long sets, old favorites mixed in with new songs from the new album, strong vocals, Type 1 jams, and the occasional jam that did push the boundaries. But there's also the personal aspect to it, the reasons that Derek wanted to tell his story, and I'll leave that to him. So let's join Derek to talk about Sarah Palin, Fishman's Journal, and what it's like underneath the stage as we discuss June 9th, 2009 at the Asheville Civic Center. Derek, welcome back to Attendance Bias. How are you?
Good, man. Thanks for having me. I've been pumped about this all week.
Me too. I really have been. For those of you listening, in case you're a new listener or newish listener, Derek has been on the podcast previously. Last time you were here, Derek, we talked about a major show also from 2009, from the summer tour of 2009, and that was August 14th at whatever, the Meadows, whatever it's called now.
I believe at the time it was another Comcast or Xfinity or something, which it probably still is or something like that. But,
and that was when Phish kind of brought Gamehenge back to the table for 3.0. But now we're going even farther earlier in this summer tour. One of the first shows after they came back in 3.0 for a full summer tour. Today we are here to talk about June 9th, 2009 at the Asheville Civic Center in Asheville, North Carolina.
Yes, it was their 7th show back on tour that summer.
So we've already had you here for a lightning round. So,
right.
But it wouldn't be an Attendance Bias episode without a lightning round. So I've had to kind of Rubik's Cube some of the questions around. So some a little bit familiar but different. So Derek, get ready for round 2 of the Attendance Bias lightning round.
Let's do it.
Attendance Bias lightning round.
So, Derek, when you were here earlier, you told us about your first show, which was the IT Festival in 2003. So what was your second Phish show, and what do you remember about it?
My second Phish show, which I believe you were at, I've heard you mention this before, but my second Phish show was 12/2/03 in Boston. It was part of the 20th anniversary run, and it was the actual 20th, anniversary, 20 years to the day. It was in Boston. It was called the Garden was called the Fleet Center at the time, I believe, and it was quite an experience. Were you there actually, or had you seen?
I saw 2 earlier shows. So that 4-night run, the Thanksgiving run, basically the 20th anniversary run, was, if I remember this correctly, the Nassau Coliseum, Philadelphia at the Spectrum, and then Albany and culminating in Boston.
Yes, that sounds about right.
So I went to the first 2. I went to Nassau and I went to
Philly.
Philadelphia, but I didn't go
Right
to
on.
the back half.
So first of all, I was pretty well. I wasn't young, but in 2003, I was 19, and the experience I had so far with Phish, with live Phish, was it. That was it. It was a festival, you know. So I showed up to this show, no ticket, not much money, and it was brutally cold out. I ended up scoring a cheap ticket early on and got in right around the time the show was starting. So this particular show, they played a lot of songs that are like some of my favorite songs. So it was like a really nice night for me. I was in there with some friends. Like Boston's about an hour from where I lived at the time. I rode up with some friends from the Cape, and but they played a Boogie on the Wedge. They did a Frankenstein, Kung Frankenstein. They played Cavern, Horn, Birds of a Feather, Piper, like all these tunes that I love. The playing was a little sloppy, but I didn't know that at the time. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's that's like a recurring theme with the shows I saw early on. Is I had been getting into them for years, and I was just happy to be there. I didn't, you know what I mean? It was all the most amazing experience ever, just being there.
Right. It was a honeymoon period.
Yeah, yeah. I got into them during hiatus and just really didn't think I'd ever see them. You know, so the most beautiful part of this show was for at the set break, these screens came down from the ceiling, all four sides, so anywhere in the arena could see it, and they played like an almost half-hour long home video montage of early Phish year clips, and it was the first time that I really felt connected to something like way bigger than me. I don't want to like get too weird, but it was like almost spiritual, you know, like, and I wasn't there in the early years. Being in a sea of people that were, some weren't, and whatever, and seeing the foundation of this band and what brings us all together, and it was just really moving, you know. I
I
love
do know
that.
what you mean because
Yeah.
I've seen that video. It's on YouTube. I've watched it
Yeah.
dozens of times at least. And even though I wasn't there for that show, like the live airing of it, such as it was,
Right.
the way I felt about it when I first saw it, because it opens with the band being videotaped, their own videotape of them practicing Fluffhead, the opening
Yes.
notes of it. And like,
Yeah.
we're going to practice just the opening of Fluffhead. And then there was footage of them doing the hay exercise, like the
Right.
improvisation hay exercise.
Right.
And I remember thinking as I watched it for the first time, all of the stuff that I've read about, I've always pictured what it looked like. This is kind of what my
Hmm.
podcast is about in a way. I've always
Yeah.
wondered what it looked like in my mind's eye. And I had an image, all right, well, the band is standing in this kind of room, and here's what it sounds like when one of them says, hey, but it's only
Hmm.
Brian's version of it. What this did was gave us a historical, factual, objective record of what it was
Absolutely.
like to be there. And so it was extremely meaningful to me. Those
Yeah.
4 nights, though, in retrospect, 22 years later or so, I look back at it as kind of their turning point of 2.0. I think
Yeah.
2.0 was amazing throughout 2003, but this 4 show run toward the end of it was pretty unremarkable in terms of the playing and the jams.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
experience of being there was wonderful. Like
Right.
the Dude of Life came on at the Nassau Coliseum. I think Tom
Hmm.
Marshall came on in Philadelphia. I'll have to double check this, but I'm pretty sure that's the
Sure.
case. Jeff Holdsworth played in Albany, and it's like this
Right.
acknowledgement of their past, this tip of the cap to all this
Hmm.
stuff that the fans love. It's a lot of fan service, although I don't know if that phrase even existed back then. But that's what was special about it, because Phish is a band that typically, at that time at least, did not indulge in that kind of stuff.
Right.
If it was known already, then it wasn't cool enough to do again. We're gonna try
Right.
something new. So
Right.
that's what that 4 show run means to me. I don't
Hmm.
re-listen to it. I will rewatch that video many times.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I will add, without going way off course here, that I had originally answered this question referring to the 2004 Vegas run, completely forgetting that I went to the 12/2/03 show, and that is a lot of like where you're headed with that, like, you know, the second part of 2.0. And I said, wait a second, no, it wasn't Vegas. I went to Boston. this episode could have gotten into a lot of even darker, a lot of darker stuff to answer that question, you know?
Sure.
And again, I was just happy to be there. You know, I didn't know that I was witnessing like the dark ages, so to speak, you know?
Well, let's talk about some light ages. What was your
Hell
most
yeah.
recent show, and what did you think of it?
My most recent show was 7/27/25, which was night 3 of SPAC. So there's a couple reasons. I hadn't planned on seeing any shows this year, and then I happened to have a weekend without my children, and SPAC is about 2 hours from where I live, and I grabbed my buddy Ian, who has one of the most like accomplished musicians I know, and has loved Phish as long as I've known him, but he's never seen him. So I got to bring someone to their first show, and we saw night 2 and night 3 of SPAC. This is all I'll say about it, man. When Tweezer Reprise started in the first set after the Buried Alive opener, I turned to him and I said, "This is the most badass 3 minutes of rock and roll." Sure enough, just shoved my foot right in my mouth when they decided to play it all night long. You know, it was in such the best way. You know, I was so happy.
I texted my wife. She wasn't there, but I was there, and I texted my
Yeah,
wife during that same exact part, probably right when you turned to your friend, and they were when they started jamming Tweezer Reprise. I wrote a special show in progress, like right
yeah,
away. I was calling it right away, and
that's
gosh,
awesome.
yeah, we all knew it pretty quickly, pretty quickly.
Yeah,
So we mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, the show we're here to talk about, the Asheville Civic Center, June 9th, 2009. You said this was the seventh show of the tour. Is that right?
yes,
So since this was soon after their comeback in Hampton for 3.0, this is
right,
a purely speculative, opinion-based question. What do
yeah.
you think would be more exciting to attend? If you had a time machine but only one ticket, would you go to the Madison Square Garden comeback show in 2002 that started the 2.0 era, or would you go to Hampton to that comeback show that started the 3.0 era?
No doubt, it's an easy answer. I'd go to Hampton, man. And as you said, it's strictly an opinion question. In 2009, I was very solidified in my fandom. You know, 2002, I might not have appreciated what I was seeing, or I'm not gonna put it that way. I just would have been way more into the Hampton run, the comeback shows in 2009. At that point, I mean, this whole me going on tour for 2009 begins with during the breakup, my best friend and I committing, if they ever come back, you know, come hell or high water, we're dropping whatever the fuck we're doing and going on the road, you know?
I
Uh,
love that you said that because before they even announced their comeback, which was in October of 2008, was when they
yeah,
announced it on the website before the shows in March 2009.
yeah,
A little bit before that, this was my second or third year as a teacher, like a contracted tenured teacher. And my
hmm,
girlfriend at the time, I remember being in the kitchen and I was either washing dishes or cooking. I was at the sink, either way.
hmm,
And I said to her, I just want to let you know if Phish ever decides to come back, because I got her into Phish. She was not a fan necessarily.
hmm,
And I
hmm,
said, just so you know, if they ever come back, if we ever get the chance to play live, I'm going to drop everything no matter what I'm doing or where I'm
yeah,
going. And I'm going to see them. And she goes, oh, that's nice. You know, like a little kid might say he's going to the moon for the
right,
afternoon, you
right.
know?
You can
And
be anything you want to be.
yeah,
Put your
exactly. And
mind to it. Yeah.
that's how she taught it. So that's how she treated it. And she said, well, you know, this summer, talking about the upcoming summer of 2009, my dad is turning 60. And I think he
Hmm.
might want to take the family up to a vacation and like rent a couple condos in Vermont and just celebrate his. And I'm like, that's nice. But I'm just letting you know if Phish ever comes back. And lo and behold, we didn't have to miss the get together, the family celebration. We still went there,
Right, right.
but I had to sow the seeds
Yeah, for
just
sure, man.
because.
I think there are a lot of fans like us. You know, I think if I remember correctly, your pre-breakup show stats are more extensive than mine. I've heard a lot of what you have to say about when you were getting into Phish, and it's very similar to my own story. And that being said, I'd like to think there are a lot of fans like us that were like, man, we're itching if they ever come back. It's just drop what you're doing and get on the road. And I think that also contributed to the atmosphere when they first came back. You know,
Agreed.
it was like jovial. It was celebrate good times. Come on, you know what I mean?
I remember it. All I have to do is close
Yeah,
my eyes and
yeah,
I'm back
man.
there. It felt like Disney World with no
Yeah,
rides. It was, but the vibe was the same.
I learned very quickly on tour. You get to know people, other people on tour. And we were, dude, it was like, this was like some of the best times of my life, man. I can't wait to talk about this show.
Before we get there, I have two more
Yeah,
questions for you on the lightning round. So this
yeah.
show has a couple of debuts. We'll get there, but this whole kind of week and a half, these first 10 shows of the comeback tour have a whole
Mhm.
bunch of 3.0 staples.
Right,
Today, like including Alaska for today,
right,
Jones Beach,
right.
there were a whole bunch. Since then, what is the best debut that you've ever seen at a Phish show?
Yeah, this is a great question, and it's nearly impossible to narrow down to one. I use the Helping Friendly app for my stats and stuff, and I've seen 51 debuts. I mean, everything from Joy because that's this time period, you know.
Right.
Everything from moving on, everything from Fuego and
Big
Big
boat?
Boat, and yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I was out there in 2016 and saw all those. So anyway. I couldn't narrow it down to one. I'm gonna rifle them off quickly. I don't have long explanations for them, but Killing in the Name,
Sure.
7410, simply because it's such a badass tune. I watched Peace, Love, and Light turn into a mosh pit just with a few notes on the guitar, you know, like a show you were at the night we met, actually, Life Saving Gun.
Right.
I love that tune. I love when they stretch it out, and that night was the first time they played it. And then going back to 2010, Lookout Cleveland. I love the band. They played at Cuyahoga Falls at Blossom Center. And then and the final one is like more of a recovery tune, and I've been a dude like in and out of recovery for a while. But Architect at SPAC 7613, and that's one that I'm chasing right now. I think it's up to like in the 300 or 400 show gap right now. But Architect is a beautiful tune, man. I love it. It's got a lot of like wise insight in there, and life lessons. It's a beautiful tune, man.
To wrap it up, you told us last time about the weirdest thing you've ever seen at a Phish show.
Hmm.
What was the runner up? What was the second weirdest thing you've ever seen at a
Well,
Phish show?
this was something that I don't think, I mean, no one else, not too many people get to see, but it's for such a weird scene, right? Like unconventional band, unconventional scene. I've never seen too many like way out there things, like, because we're like part of it. It's like it's our life. It's par for the course. But
Right, it's like, do no pun intended, but do fish know that they're wet?
yeah,
Like we're
exactly,
part of it. Yeah.
exactly. In Bangor on July 3rd in 2013, I was on the rail. It was one of the few shows I was on the rail for, and before the show started, security thought that I looked dehydrated. They grabbed me and took me under the stage, and we walked like pretty far. Like we must have been under the middle of the stage, and they had gallons of water and a hammock hanging between like the scaffolding, and they let me drink some water for a little while and rest in the hammock. If anyone's ever up there on the rail and needs some water, I wonder, do they have that set up at every show or what? I mean, it was pretty hot out that day, but I'm assuming not too many people have been like under the stage at the beginning of a show. The show did start while I was under there, and it was cool.
When was this show played?
So zooming out, let's take a look at the 2009 summer tour, especially the
Yeah.
beginning of it for today's show, June 9th, 2009. So
Yes,
today's
sir.
show was played at the very beginning of the first full-scale tour of 3.0. It was called the quote, and this is how Phish used to do it, the early summer tour.
Right.
Right, they
Right.
used to split it into two halves, an early
Yep.
leg and a late leg. The late
Yep.
summer tour was from July 30th at Red Rocks, and then it ended in August 16th at SPAC. So
Right.
this is the seventh show of the tour, as you mentioned, coming after
Yes.
what many considered to be the first big jam back in Camden.
Yeah,
where they played a really well-rounded show, and the standout was Sand, which is, I
right.
think, unless I missed something, I think one of the first jams that are on the jam charts of 3.0,
Yes,
according to Phish.net. So this is
you're
the
absolutely
next
right.
one. This is the show after that.
Yeah, I've heard the Stub Me Down guys talk about that Sand. One of those guys is a big Sand fan. So this show, well, I'll put in where I was. My perspective here. I grew up in New England. I grew up on Cape Cod. So most of the heads that I grew up with were at Fenway, Jones Beach, Mansfield, Camden. This is when we cut it, and it was just the rest of us that were like going on the road. Everybody went home except the few buddies I was traveling with and myself. Until then, it had been kind of like it had been like if we hired Phish to play our own reunion. You know what I mean? There were dozens of us that grew up together at those first 6 shows. We get down to Asheville, and it's like it's a whole new world. This show was the first indoor show of the summer. It was the smallest venue I'd seen Phish in to date. It might still be the smallest venue I've seen Phish in. I'd have to look at that. And Asheville is like you're heading down south. You're in a new world. You know what I mean? Everything's different. Asheville's a beautiful, beautiful liberal city. By the way, I feel like Asheville parties all the time. Down to Patton Avenue. Patton Avenue is where it's at. Give you a little more context of my life at the time. I had been living in Asheville until Phish announced their comeback. I left Asheville late in 2008, went back to the Cape where I'd grown up, and my buddy and I started, putting our plan together for tour. That's another reason why this show was, sentimental to me. Was I had lived there only months earlier. Well, but by the time we got there, some months earlier, and it was sort of a reunion in a sense. But
Yeah,
um,
absolutely. And this, like you just said, those first 6 shows are grouped together. They're all in the Northeast. They're all within a few
yes,
miles of driving. It's not hard to get
yes,
back and forth. And like you said, culturally, Camden to Asheville, you may as well be going from Earth to Mars. It's
yeah,
completely different in almost
right,
every single way.
right.
And just to look at it in the bigger picture, at this time, and I'm curious to hear your sense of this, the
Uh-huh.
excitement of Phish being back, right? This is their first tour. So if you didn't get tickets to Hampton, and many people did not get tickets to
Mm,
Hampton, right?
yeah,
This was your first shot at seeing them back. And everyone heard Hampton by this point, right? It had been about a
hmm,
month, I
yeah,
think, yeah, right? A month to go before this. They were playing well. The songs were being played well. Vocally, they sounded great. A lot of people, and I include myself in this, who got into the band toward the end of 2.0 or even during the breakup, and this was their first chance to see Phish live on tour. And older
yeah,
fans like me came to shows on this tour, and I think a lot of us were hoping that the recital part of
hmm,
Hampton, where they were playing like 15 songs a set, and the shows were like 3.5 hours a piece,
right,
were just for the comeback shows, just to be like, hey, we're back. Let's play everything we've got. And I
yeah,
was thinking that on tour, all of a sudden, 1994 Phish is going to return. Like, no time at all had passed. We just did a time loop from 1994, incredible, like boundless jamming. Now we're in
mm,
2009, like 15 years, just like that. But it was clear now in retrospect that the band was just getting their sea legs back. It doesn't
yeah,
work that way. If they
yeah,
were testing out new songs, they weren't quite at the point where they could just begin improvising and jamming, even though they were practiced and they were healthy. But
hmm,
again, this is all in retrospect. At the time, I remember the excitement of 2009 just being this is the first time I've heard them play Mound, for example,
right,
in however
right,
many years, literally years live. This is the
yeah,
first time they've played Rift since, all these songs that kind of were on the bench during 2.0 because they
right.
were
And
too
there were a lot.
complicated.
Yeah,
Yeah, there were quite a few. Now they're all back in part of the regular rotation. So that kind
right.
of was the umbrella over the rest of it. A good umbrella because it just rained excitement at every single show. It
Yeah,
was thrilling, even if in
right,
retrospect, the playing isn't something that you have to go back to over and over again.
right. It was very clear that Fish were they were a completely different band than they were when they put their instruments down. in 2004. There are some themes, well, maybe not themes, but there are some facts that'll show up when we're talking about the individual songs a little while from now. They sounded, despite like not having like the big jams that we were hoping for, and the tight, the tight playing that obviously that stuff is going to go away when you're not playing for 4 or 5 years. Despite that, they sounded very confident. They sounded very clean. They sounded full of energy. It was a whole new band, but it wasn't like a handful of old fogies going out there or anything. They were rejuvenated. They sounded clean, young. They sounded excited. It was really great. Truly, it was great to witness. Yeah.
And the personality and the goofiness was there too.
Yeah.
Something that draws us, I think, most of us to Phish, or at least in part. And we'll get to there in this show, when
Absolutely.
they do the Fishman song suite and with Lengthwise and everything. And it's
Right.
like, oh, right, this is a band that shows personality in addition to these really fun songs. Like that
Right.
has not gone away.
Yeah, the connection, the humor, the banter, it was all still there. It might even have that stuff kind of suffered at the hands of 2.0. The banter wasn't joyful at some of those shows. It was nice to have it back.
Set 1.
Well, let's get started with it. Set 1 opens with Kill Devil Falls, which is its third ever performance. I remember I saw the debut of it at Jones Beach, where the crowd was kind of understated,
Late
in
the show too.
Yeah.
It's interesting how it's become an opener after the debut was just, I think it was like late in the second set even at Jones Beach. So you'll have to fact check that one.
I remember, though, the crowd being very quiet about it, and the way it sounds in this audience recording is similar, that the crowd is polite. People are, they clap, they cheer, but they're far from thrilled, let's say, like as if they opened with Wilson, for example.
Right.
But the band sounds energetic and powerful right away.
Yeah, let me sort of set the scene here. As I had said, this was the first indoor show of the summer. For me, like I said, when I walked in the place, my jaw dropped at how small it was. Any seat that I could have had in there, I felt very close to the band. The very first sensory observation that I remember is how thunderous Fishman's bass drum was, how body shaking the bass lines were and everything. So I want people to understand that with the observations I have from this show. These were soul rattling playing in such a small place. So Kill Devil Falls, super high energy opener, even as the third time being played. Haters gonna hate, right? But I don't know if the entire audience was on board with it, but I think they got on board pretty quickly because the band came out firing on all cylinders with that. It was played perfectly. It was played super high energy. Man, we were rocking right out of the gate, man.
Yeah, no, the band definitely had a vision for this one. They knew how this song could grow into this arena rock monster. I think they had a vision of what it would sound like in a big crowded venue, even though this particular venue was not that large.
Right.
Because the first jam starts at about 4 minutes with a guitar solo, Page on the organ, so nothing crazy. But then by 6 minutes, just about 2 minutes later, the jam, I wrote, jumps up to another level. And this is a big time musical energy for the show opener. It reminds me, it's not dissimilar from the dynamics of Backwards Down the Number Line, which they play later. Even though they don't sound alike, those two songs, the crowd is always like, okay, great. I like the song, don't love it. But by the end of it, everyone's rocking out to it.
I've always looked at Kill Devil Falls as being very akin to Chalk Dust Torture or Possum, particularly because of the key. I don't know if they're in the same key, but the progression is similar. That leads to a lot of the soloing being similar, and it's got a tempo and a place now that just it always kind of it's like the new Chalk Dust or the new Possum for me, you know.
I remember at the town, people were calling it the new Alabama Getaway
Oh, there you go. It sounds a lot like Alabama
at the
Getaway.
time. But they follow up Kill Devil Falls with the Moment Dance. And
Right.
my first thought was, I got to check the stats, if this stat even exists, to see if the Moment Dance is the most frequently played song in the not second set, but in the two spot. If it wasn't, at this point, it certainly has become that player in 3.0.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I think that it's specifically a 3.0 thing because of the need to let's open the show with something new. Let's also give the fans a really great classic opener. You know what I mean? It's a song that gets people going. It's as dancey as it gets. It's usually pretty funky. So I've always kind of felt like, especially in the 3.0 period, we'll try something new, then we'll give them something they want, you know?
And they stick with it because they play Sample in a Jar next, which is
Right.
just as predictable as anything else, but keeps the audience happy. Because I love the sing-along you can hear in this audience recording. And
Yeah.
at 4 minutes, it's nothing that's going to blow anyone's mind because we've all heard the song, but Trey is killing the tone. And the audience is loving it. It's really washing over. The whole sound is really tight.
Right. I like you put in your notes, moving the chains. That's the perfect way to put it. You know what I mean? They're driving down the field, they're moving the chains. You know, a Hail Mary, it's not a touchdown, it's not a big play, but it's something that is going to be appreciated by everybody there. There are a handful of songs that are like heart songs, you know what I mean? The sing-along aspect, everybody's in on it. It's a classic. It's been there forever. It ties us together, you know? Takes the mood up a notch. Everybody, this is the first three songs here are completely joyful, happy, high energy. We're high-fiving, we're hugging. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it makes it a homecoming. In
Yeah,
addition,
exactly.
because everyone who's seeing them on this point of the tour, it's been forever since they've last seen them. It's
Right.
been, no matter where they're playing in this 2009, and this is true, it could be true any year, but it felt this way in 2009 that, oh, this is my first show back. I haven't seen them. I couldn't get tickets to Hampton or whatever. This, and so all these songs have that. It's almost like taking a shower after a festival. It's like, oh, this relief of like I'm back to who I was before I left, that sort of thing. And we keep up with that because after a Sample in a Jar, they play Stash, which is the first time they try to break Type 1 jamming. And they don't go too far. But it does push the boundaries a little bit. There's some like high speed back and forth. It creates tension, which is great.
Yeah.
They groove into a minor key at around 9 minutes, and they get back to Stash not very long after. it's over at like around 10 minutes. It's not a long version of the song. And this is when the whole segment of the first set, which really charmed me about this show, Trey starts talking. You mentioned the banter earlier. Trey starts talking about this is now like the Fishman part of the of the show, of the set, where he used to kind of comb through Fishman's journal and take out segments and put them together to create lyrics for a song.
Phish is not going to sing on this one. The three of us are, but I have to say that it is about him. This is called Dog-Faced Boy. So you guys can all just stare at him while we sing. Come on out here, Phish. Just stand there. They're not going to turn this into a 4-second long VH1 Storytellers. I used to be, Phish and I used to room together. We used to live together. And one day he left his journal on the table in our living room. And I picked it up and wrote 3 songs out of his journal without him knowing about it. And this is one of the other 2 were Tube and Gumbo, lyrics by John Phish. All from one journal. Little did you know.
Yeah, he says something along, I remember this very specifically. He goes something like, not to turn this into a VH1 Storytellers.
Right.
But, yeah, and then he goes into, I wrote these songs after looking through Fishman's journal. And what I learned from that is my love for Fishman grew, because these 3 songs are lyrically some of my favorite Phish songs. You know what I mean? They're very descriptive, creative, goofy, I was here for it. And then inside the show that night, they played Dog-Faced Boy after, once they did the next one. And then if you listen to once Tube starts, the crowd noise, like we knew it was coming once he had said this song, and then they played the next, we were like, they're really gonna do it, and it was wild, man.
Yeah, for those of you keeping score at home, so after Stash,
it's what I just said.
Right. It's Dog-Faced Boy, which sounds great, and 3.0. I think a hallmark of at least early 3.0 was when they came back. Oh my God, their vocals sound so good.
I have that written here about 5 times. Trey's voice sounds so clean and confident.
Yeah, and especially for those of us who were there at the end of 2.0 when they did not sound clean nor confident. This was such a relief. But Dog-Faced Boy sounds, the song sounds like it has more weight than the lyrics, with respect to Fishman, actually deserve, because of how well they're delivered.
Trey pops in at the end of that. Got to give credit where credit's due, so I don't get the angry phone call from Tom. He points out that Tom helped write that, which I thought was pretty funny. I'd be like, as if Tom Marshall would ever give Trey a phone call, an angry phone call, saying, "How could you forget me, man?"
Right.
And then they're heading into Gumbo.
Yeah, which is these are all very straightforward versions of these songs. So I love a great big jam, but those of you looking for atypical versions of songs, these aren't gonna grab your attention. This set list is kind of like how they used to play in the very early 90s, when they would just play to get the songs down and show off their versatility.
It's kind of like 2 first sets. Yeah. In a way. Well, aside, we'll get there, but so the Gumbo was great. It was straightforward. They played it really well. They didn't, mess up lyrics or mess up transitions. It was really, really great. And then Trey says something like, "Well, I guess we'll finish it out," and they launch into Tube, which is a favorite Phish song of mine, like probably a top 5, and it's a hot one, man. Like for the time period and for what they were doing, that's a hot Tube.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was, I remember for a while on what used to be Twitter, there was, I don't know if it still exists, but there was an account called Did Phish Jam Tube, and whenever Phish would play it, the account would only tweet one word. It would be no or yes. And it was no for the longest time. That was the joke because throughout until maybe like 2013 or 2014, Tube was like a 4.5 or 6 minute song. And that's it. I'm talking about the
Yeah.
3.0 era. But
Right.
this version of Tube, it's nothing to just pass by
No,
casually.
not at all.
I never wrote this phrase before. I wrote surprisingly funky and inventive. Is this proto Plinko? Because
Yeah.
it's not quite Plinko jamming, but it sounds like
Right.
it could have been where the idea got rolling.
The effect is there. The effect that Trey uses in those Plinko jams, whatever that is, it's some kind of like delay or something. It's there. You can hear the actual effect, but he doesn't take it into that Plinko world, which would come later that same summer,
Right, on the show that we covered in Hartford.
Yeah, that got real Plinkoed out, that Hartford show.
And they wrap it up, this whole segment, with Lengthwise, which is also a Fishman song, but this one is a little different. It's the first one. First of all, it's completely a cappella. Like Fishman's not even on the drum set. And it's the first one played in 235 shows. The last one was at July 28th, 1998 in Bonner Springs in Kansas at the Sandstone Amphitheater. So this is a huge bust out.
And Trey absolutely made us feel like if we cheered loud enough, that Fishman would do it. And I always wonder in those moments, like, was it planned? I don't know. I won't go down that rabbit hole, but Fishman's my hero, man. Fishman's always been my hero. I love him so much. And I love any show that he gets this much involved in. I mean, I shouldn't even word it like that because he's the machine that drives the band, but it's not like he's not involved. But when he's coming out and singing and doing his thing, man, it's so much more special to me. Lengthwise was amazing.
And it's so simple, but it's very him. It's very Fishman, and you would expect it to go into Maze, as it almost always does. It doesn't. And I think this is a really interesting point when we talk about set list selection and the catch-all word flow, when we talk about set lists and how shows were played. After, what is this, a 5-song? Let's see, there's Dogface Boy, Gumbo. Yeah, 4-song, that's like Fishman, which is kind of like goofy lyrics that don't really make sense, but the music is great. They then played Divided Sky, one of their like top 2 songs, like Between You, Enjoy Myself, and Divided Sky. I would always link them together.
Quintessential Phish, man.
Yeah.
For me, quintessential Phish, and I refer to it as that, is Yem, Divided Sky, Slave, Reba, and Curtain With. That's quintessential Phish. Divided Sky. I'm gonna give you a hot take here.
I love it.
when I was early on in my fandom, Divided Sky was my bathroom break song because I knew that I wasn't going to miss some kind of crazy jam. I
Sure.
know exactly what to expect. I can get to the bathroom and get back before something unexpected might happen. But the placement of it here was beautiful. It's exactly what the show needed at exactly that time. In my veteran, self-proclaimed veteran status at this point, I would show up to hear him play Divided Sky 5 times in a row. It's such a beautiful song. It's such an emotionally powerful song. It was perfect, right where it was.
I agree. Everything about this one is perfect, and your boy Fishman is really powering this one. There are some drum fills in this version of Divided Sky that I would rewind because I usually listen to these shows getting ready for a conversation while I walk my dog. I would when Fishman played some of these fills, I would rewind it, press play, rewind it, press play, like a little kid with his first tape player. I just couldn't get over how, I mean, I know he's played it hundreds of times, but how he anticipates these and places them and knows where to go on the drum set to end this fill at the same time that section of the melody ends. It's just, it blows my mind. In 2009, we're talking, you know?
Right. I think we can all agree that when there are times when Fishman drives the song. There are times when Fishman hangs back and lets the other members drive a song. And when Fishman is driving a song, it's usually something really nasty happening.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And then they change registers a little bit. They play this one time only, first and only time, a Jimmy Rogers song, right? Classic country singer. This song called When the Cactus Is in Bloom, a bluegrass song. And I'm not surprised that Mike is singing.
Yeah. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Mike is the one that that kind of pushed them to get into some the bluegrass sessions that are on YouTube back in, I think it was 94, 90, maybe fall 94.
Yeah, and even
yeah.
before that, there was a big, not a jam band, but they were in kind of that like neo hippie movement of the early 90s called Max Creek. And Mike was
Max
a big
Creek,
fan of Max Creek. And I think Trey once told the story that he came to band rehearsal saying that he wrote a new song and it was a bluegrass song and he got everyone to learn it. And then after I don't know which one it was, then after they finished learning it, he said, "Oh yeah, this is a song by Max Creek." Like he tricked them into learning country and bluegrass.
So Max Creek, I mean, Max Creek is from the area I live in. They're Western Mass band. And you get Scott Murowski is in Max Creek, and he sat in with Phish once for an encore at Mansfield, I think. But they do a lot of, like, when I listen, I'll just make this quick. When I listen to Max Creek albums, the beginning of every song sounds kind of like an already existing Grateful Dead tune. And then when I expect them to start singing Grateful Dead words, it's Max Creek words. It's funny, man. It's funny, but yeah. And Mike actually, Murowski plays in Mike Gordon band. So right. I mean, like that's yeah. There's a whole web of connection there, and Mike. I think Mike loves that bluegrass stuff. But the best thing about this cover was the yodeling, man. Mike yodeling. We have recording of Mike Gordon yodeling, and that's like, that makes it worth it, you know?
I was gonna say, for anyone here who hasn't ever heard Mike Gordon yodel and wants to, This is the place to find it. I think that's the reason why they haven't played it again. Not
And he
that
nails
Mike
it.
is bad. He does hit all the high notes. That was what I put in my written notes. He does hit all the high notes, which is impressive. It really is. Along with a piano solo from Page about a minute in.
Yeah.
But if we were having, let's say, a yodeling contest, I don't think Mike would make it past the semis.
I actually in my own notes wrote, I know you put clips in sometimes, like in between us talking. I wrote, this is the perfect time for a clip of Mike yelling. So
goes down on the cattle trail, I'm gazing at the moon. For it's round up time away out west where the cactus are in bloom.
so, and let me tell you what came next is one of my favorite covers, and probably the most beautiful way they could have ended the first set. Jimi Hendrix's "Bold as Love."
Yeah, the greatest.
With such a great cover. They always nail it. I mean, they don't always nail it. They always nail it in regards to our expectations. If you listen, I actually made a note of this at the end of Kill Devil Falls, way back at the beginning. Trey had some like really Jimi Hendrix stylistic riffing at the end of Kill Devil Falls, and that's what I said. It's kind of bookends, closing out with a Jimmy tune, kind of just bookends that whole set,
And it's fun that they follow up a brand new one-time cover, even though it was only, we didn't know it would be one time in real time, but a debut cover, let's say, with a classic all-time cover. And what a choice. I know this is old news, but what a choice to have Page sing this. He matches it. His inflection is so good. And then the usual heartwarming Hendrix guitar solo toward the end. My last note for this set is almost too good.
It's too good. Yeah. You are right about the fact that it's a very suitable set for the time period, and it's a really great first set, Phish first set. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we were all on. And by the time the final notes of "Bold as Love" ended, like we were all on cloud nine. That was for me personally. That was the set of the tour so far. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Brian here to welcome you to the set break of today's episode of Attendance Bias. First, thank you for listening. And second, just a quick reminder to tell you that even though Attendance Bias comes to you for free, it does take a lot of work and it does take quite a bit of money to keep the lights on here at production. So I just wanted to ask a small favor if you could support the podcast in any number of the following ways. If you could leave a review or a rating of it on whichever podcast app you use. If you could spread the word, telling a friend or someone you think may be interested in it about it. Or probably the most concrete way is to go to www.buymeacoffee.com/attendancebias and donate however much you can financially to help with the continuing costs of Attendance Bias. So thank you again so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the second half of today's episode.
Set 2.
Well, there's more to come. The second set opens with Backwards Down the Number Line, which is the third time ever played that the song was ever played, at least for the audience. This song, had a pretty rough start. I mean, there's still fans, maybe me sometimes, who groan when it starts up. But I got to tell you, Phish and Tom Marshall can write some earworms. They really can write some phrases that get stuck in your head almost despite yourself. There are fans who groan when it starts up, and the band was still having trouble mastering the key change and tempo changes that make this song a little bit more complex than it may appear on the surface.
Sure.
And I think a lot of fans at the time, the same ones like me who were coming back thinking that 1994 Phish is going to show up any day now.
Mm,
I think a lot of fans didn't like the shameless optimism of this song.
I'll agree with you there.
You know,
I
we responded a bit better to the pessimism of, let's say, 20 years later, which was brand new at the time. That kind
Yeah.
of got a crowd, even though that song isn't a big cheer when it starts, but people
No.
can they kind of accept it a little bit more. It's like, yeah, we've all had a rough life too, because it's been so long since we've seen you from 2.0 to 3.0. Backwards down the number line, I don't think we were quite ready for it, but our kids are going to love it, to quote Back to the Future, you know?
I'll tell you what. I have two things to add here. I agree with you about the shameless optimism part, whereas 20 years later was much more accepted. And I'll go as far to say as 20 years later sounds like it could have been an outtake from Story of the Ghost era or Farmhouse. You know what I mean?
I
Like
do, yeah.
lyrically and musically. At this point where I sit right now, you and I sitting here talking about this, I've lost so many friends that well, anytime one of my boys, one of my friends, one of my loved ones has a birthday, I think of this song, right? And people have called it the Phish birthday song or the 3.0, boomer birthday song, whatever. I appreciate it for that, man. I can't say that I loved it on June 9th, 2009. I didn't mind it, but it's taken on such a deeper, more powerful meaning as time has gone on, the guy I was with at this show, my buddy Easton, passed away a few years ago, and it's part of the reason. It's part of the reason we'll get to it when we get a few more songs into this set here. It's part of the reason that this show means so much to me. I appreciate every day above ground these days.
Yeah, and I think that this song is a big indicator of that. I agree
That's
with
yeah,
you. Like, the song hasn't changed, but we have.
yeah. You're
So,
you're exactly right, man.
but just to give it its due, this isn't all just cheery, us being cynical at the beginning of 3.0. There are big guitar fireworks toward the end of the song at about 4
Yeah,
minutes and 40 seconds. And then at 6 minutes, this is the meme of fans that groan when it starts and then
yeah,
party when it hits its peak. And it also has a little jammy little melody at the end before it segues right into Ghost, right? It's not just,
yeah.
we're going to play this song and be done with it. They do, I wouldn't call it a true jam or a true groove, but they are giving us hints that this song is not just going to be a ripcord bummer for a
Right.
3.0. There's
And
room to grow here.
That's been the punchline of Backwards Down the Number Line since they first played it. Is
Yeah,
that if you're a guitar person, that's some of the best tone and some of the best ripping that Trey's ever done. That the solos and the ending and everything of Backwards Down the Number Line are really top notch guitar playing.
definitely.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the punchline.
And then when they start Ghost, I still
Yeah,
thought they were shaking some of the rust off with they missed the drop of it. Like, it
sure,
doesn't hit
yeah,
all the changes, right? But to your point, way earlier in our conversation, the bass is
yeah.
so out there.
I
I
have
almost
that.
felt it in my chest, and I'm listening to it on noise canceling headphones.
Yeah, I have that exact note. I said Mike is playing really low and dark here. He's got like a phaser on or something throughout the beginning there. And I just wanted to touch on this is only the second Ghost of the 3.0 era, right?
And the first one was very good.
And the
The one at
first
Jones
one
Beach.
was very good. Jones Beach. It had like, you would have thought the aliens were landing their UFO at the end of that. It had a lot of like no quarter tone sounding effects going on. And this one is also really, really, I mean, it wanders for a little bit, but near the end, if they had been stretching things out a little longer in this period, like it's almost like they were getting to where they knew they could get to and where we wanted them to get to. And then instead of like continuing into the unknown, they'd kind of,
Yeah.
pull it back, not quite ripcord, but just kind of, all right. So we know we can still do that. Let's try something else. And this is a great go. I mean, this is a great ghost. I would love to do like an analysis of all the 2009 ghosts or something. And I mean, these are strong ghosts, man.
Well, there's a guy who I don't know where he is on social media anymore, but back when Twitter was good, there was a guy whose handle was Lawn Memo, and
Okay.
he had a project. I don't know how far he got into it, called The Daily Ghost, where he's reviewed.
Ah,
I think he finished it, but I could be wrong. Just about every single ghost that Phish ever played.
that's wild.
And so I'll have to look up this one about it. So, but if you are looking for an analysis, I'll see if I could dig up his archive and see if I could find where he is and where he keeps his writing to
Yeah,
put
man, I'd
this
love
one.
to.
Because this was wonderful. I mean, there was really extreme guitar and piano playing around 12 and a
Yeah.
half minutes, like lots of finger tapping, like real
Yep.
rock and roll. And you could hear the crowd absolutely loving it
Oh yeah,
with
totally.
this audience recording. And then Fishman switches over to cowbell for the last
Yep.
minute, which is very
Yep.
fun. And they kind of fade out and they melt. To your point, they don't just stop, they melt into
Yeah.
Fast Enough for You. Song of the
Yes.
show so far for me.
Yeah, I would say this is definitely the jam of the show. To speak to that, there hasn't, aside from Stash, there hasn't really been any jamming at all. It's been a lot of straightforward type one stuff that's been amazing. I made an asterisk note about how good Trey's voice sounds at the beginning of this Ghost. Like clean and serene Trey, man, can sing confidently. And I'm a guy who only had, six 2.0 shows to compare this to, like experientially, and they sound great, man. By the end of it, they get pretty close to like hose territory, but
Yes.
they don't venture into it.
Yeah, they do play a little major key kind of jam, like happy jamming. But yeah,
Yeah,
you're right. It doesn't go very far, and they melt into Fast Enough for You, which is a good come
right.
down from Ghost. It's a nice landing
Yeah,
spot. Most of
yeah,
the track, which is 8 minutes on the audience recording, is the
yeah.
guitar solo.
This was my first Fast Enough for You, and that made it special. Trey's guitar tone on that soloing is superb. It's top notch. He doesn't miss a note, and it's just so like piercing. This is one of my favorite like ballads. Such a beautiful song, man. The next song is what made this such a memorable show for me. I'm gonna tell a little story real quick, since that's why we're here. My buddy Easton that passed away a couple years ago. Some people out there may know him. He was on tour for a long time. His older brother Groggs is still on tour. He passed away a couple years ago, but he's him and I. Neither of us had a driver's license. We hopped into That was part of like the planning we had to do. We hopped into one of those 15-seater vans that one of my buddies from Cape Cod had, and there were like 6 of us that were on the road together. And but him and I were best friends. We lived out west together. We grew up together. He's we were tight. Haley's Comet was his favorite tune, right? And he was showing me the ropes of tour. He kept telling me like he kept telling me, it's like, it's a journey. It's like Lord of the Rings. Like you don't want to get arrested. You want to watch out for, all these dumb things. Like looking back, that I was like, oh yeah, okay, like eating it all up, and in a very real sense of the word, like these words, he showed me how to like act on tour, how to behave, not how to act, like how to be a chameleon or whatever. He showed me like how to respect people, and I was a fucking dumb kid. I didn't know what I was doing, and I don't want to hijack this too long. But anyway, Haley's Comet was his tune. We were chasing Haley's Comet. I always loved Haley's Comet myself. Asheville was a small venue. It was a very hard ticket. It was hot as shit. I was out there with my finger in the air all day, and the guys we were traveling with were high maintenance. Like I was at 7 shows in, a week into tour, or a couple. I'm like questioning why am I doing this? I could go home, I could listen to Phish on my CD player. When Mike started the mic beginning of Haley's Comet, I looked at him. We gave each other a huge fucking hug, and he's yelling at me, "This is why we do this. This is why we do this." I got tears coming down my eyes, like it was a whole dramatic thing, and like it's goofy to talk about, man, but that was a moment for me that made it very clear. This is why we do this. When chasing something, when you're chasing a song, when you're out there like trying to catch a break,
Yeah, and sometimes things don't always go your way.
Right. And oftentimes they don't when you're on the road like that. And then when this band that is like just means the world to us, and they throw you that thing you're looking for, it's a release, man. I'm gonna listen to this someday and think about how cheesy I sound. I don't care. It's a release, man, and it's a moving thing, man. It's a moving thing, and it touched me. A lot of shows haven't since,
Yeah, no, and that's what this podcast is for. This is why you're here.
This is the attendance bias.
Yeah,
yes.
This is the attendance
the bias.
Exactly.
There wasn't even a good Haley's. I mean,
it's very
not
standard.
Not that it was bad. Right. There was no jam. There was nothing. It was super abrupt end to it.
And it fades right into Maze, where they have
the maze is the good.
Yeah, it is. They have a little bit of trouble with the intro, but
not too much, just a little.
Yeah, just a little. You could hear it and then they get right on track. There's a great Page organ solo that, again, typical great, that is, where the rest of the band kind of has some fun with rhythm and the jazz chords they play in the back. I love it.
Yeah.
And a huge guitar peak around 8 minutes. I think that I could imagine people hearing this in real time and saying, maybe for the first time at this show, this is as good as any version they've played ever. Mm-hmm. Like, people always say that on any tour, like, oh, Phish is as good as they've ever been. I can imagine getting that feeling, that sense from this version of Maze.
Yeah, this was the second. This was, if you put that Camden's Sand as the first time people said Phish are back, this is the second Listen to this. Anybody hearing this, I challenge you. Listen to this maze and put it up against your favorite maze. It's on point. And that peak you're talking about, I listened back a little while ago today. It starts at 7.5 minutes and goes up to like 8 minutes and 45 seconds. They're pushing that. Trey's pushing it, and it keeps you know what I mean? It keeps recharging and unleashing again and reach. It's insane. It's this maze is right up there with any that I've ever heard.
Yeah, no, it hits. It rings the bell, definitely.
It rung my bell, yeah.
And they followed it up with Alaska, the debut of Alaska. And
Yeah.
I know that Alaska is supposed to be a little slow, like a little boogie woogie kind of. I think of Little Feat a little bit when I hear the band play Alaska, you know, but this version is almost plodding. It's almost a little too slow. Although Trey does save it at the end with some really great guitar playing around 6.5 minutes, right all the way through
man.
to the end of it. Yeah.
For a debut, I mean, so my little story about this one, be a little shorter than the last story. I turned to my buddy E that I was talking about. The next night, Thompson Bowling Arena at
Nashville, right? Or
Knoxville.
Yeah.
Knoxville, Tennessee, and then after that was Bonnaroo. When the music started, I turned to him. I said, "Oh my God, it's happening! They're covering the Dead. It's Tennessee Jed. It's Tennessee Jed." I'm like, "We're going to Tennessee tomorrow. It has to be Tennessee Jed." And it obviously turned out not to be, but I wholeheartedly believe they were playing Tennessee Jed for about 15 seconds. I want somebody out there to confirm if you can, however you can. I remember Trey playing with like a talk boy, you know, like one of the, you know what a talk boy is, right?
Sure.
Like you could record things. I feel like at the beginning of this show, he was playing with a talk boy that was Sarah Palin. It was quotes of like Sarah Palin, like and they were like laughing and stuff. He was playing it out to the crowd before Kill Devil Falls started. I can't be sure about that. I have no idea, but I have this like vivid memory of him like chuckling and playing Sarah Palin quotes off this talk boy, and which like completely alludes to Alaska. But that could have been another show, or it could have been a dream. I don't know.
We'll have to look it up because otherwise it's a Mandela effect thing.
Yeah,
where you're remembering something that never happened. We'll have to look into this.
I've shamelessly loved Alaska since that night, since that debut. I love the line, "The big old Alaskan mama, come walking down the road." You know, I need to head to Alaska. But anyway, continuing forth here.
Yeah, a theme from the bottom, which is a familiar and full band sound. This song is so powerful. It's remained so consistent throughout their whole career since they started it, at least.
This song was the soundtrack of that summer for me. In that 15-seater van, we had a cassette player. The line, "the night seemed to go on incredibly long," just resonated with my soul, man. We'd have these long stretches of driving. Anytime I was awake, it felt like that song was playing. It was weird, man. But looking back, that's always been like Summer Tour 2009 is like the theme from the bottom. It's not the band playing it. It's just like that theme song for me for the whole summer, man. And that wall of sound you talk about, there's a few songs like theme from the bottom, free. I call them water songs, you know, because it feels like a giant wave crashing over you, that wall of sound, you know?
And a lot of those songs that were written or debuted at least in 95, that some of them would eventually come onto Billy Breathes.
Sure.
They have a very aquatic theme lyrically.
Yep. Absolutely. I used to work on a commercial lobster fishing boat. I had Billy Breathes on CD on that boat, and sometimes it would feel like the music, the atmosphere, the physical ocean, everything, we were all one, you know? It's absolutely aquatic.
Sure, like Prince Caspian, Afloat Upon the Waves.
Yep. It's amazing. You know.
I know what you mean. They transport you. They invade your brain.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're
It's
already toward the end of the set. So after theme from the bottom is Golgi Apparatus, which is always a good pick-me-up. Their number one utility player. Like it could be
right.
put anywhere in a set list and be placed well. It's not the
That's
tightest version, but it doesn't matter once everyone starts singing the chorus. When everyone starts, I
yeah,
saw you, and you can
right.
hear it in this recording. And then Page owns it on piano in about 3 minutes. So there's in this very typical Golgi apparatus, there's a lot going for it if you are
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I have to say that I find it completely amusing. Your notes don't talk about that it can be placed anywhere, and but I wrote that exact.
Oh yeah.
I wrote it's one of a very small handful of songs that can be anywhere in a show, and it's not strange. It goes anywhere wherever you put it. It's perfect. Sounds should that's right where it should be.
And they're already
And
closing the
a great
set.
segue. Yeah, it's a great segue into Possum.
Yeah, so they're ending it with Possum, which is a great call for a closer after Golgi because
Yeah,
other than Backwards Down the Number Line and Alaska, this is a very old school set list.
it is.
Like
It
they're
is.
really delivering the goods for longtime fans. Like it gets to
Yeah,
the good stuff Possum does with rock and roll shredding fairly early with 5 minutes, and then just a bit of tension and release soon thereafter. And then all of
yeah,
a sudden, like your hair is sticking up, the show, not the show, but the set is over.
yeah. That's 6 minutes and 40 seconds is a huge tension release that Trey have been building. My buddy Seth and I, Seth is an old school head, older than you and I, as far as how long he's been seeing shows. We re-listened to Summer 2010 recently together, and abundantly clear to us that Phish learned 3.0 Phish, the new Phish, learned to get to those peaks without having to build for 10 minutes. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Or 15. There wasn't, I don't think in 2010 there was even a jam over 10 minutes long until Dick's, I don't think. But anyway, they became masters of just of getting the song played, the song proper, and then pushing that tension very quickly to where at 6 minutes and 40 seconds into a possum, your brain can be exploding. You know what I mean? And this was, aside from Ghost, this whole set was like a first set. It was like a second set, first set,
Yeah, but
first
good
set, second
calls.
set.
Good calls all the way though.
They were. This was such a great show for me. It completely, at the time, sort of obliterated any type of expectations I had built. You know what I mean? There
Good.
was no, it was, it didn't, yeah, it didn't stick to the traditional formula. And some of those first shows of that tour did kind of stick to the first set, a little bit of jamming in the second set type formula. You know, this was a very tame show, an expectation taming show. Absolutely right about the, early night, like 92 style set list. It did it though. It did it. And then I'll tell you what, there's one more song left we have to talk about. I'll let you announce that encore, and then I'll tell you what I think about that.
Yeah, the encore with Loving Cup, which to me kind of
Yeah.
was like a pairing with Bold as Love in a way, like a classic rock
Yeah.
cover that they
Yeah.
have the vocals done very well.
Mhm.
And to me it sends everyone home happy with a classic rock sing along. It sounds
Yeah.
like you weren't particularly happy, unless I'm
Nah,
misinterpreting your
you read it. You
response.
read it. You read it exactly wrong. Loving Cup is the ultimate encore for me. If you asked me
Good.
to put together perfect show, Loving Cup would be the encore. It would be by itself, nothing else. Like I mean, you and I have talked about this extensively, actually, but like Bittersweet Motel, like the documentary, was such a huge part of me getting into the band. All those like live Phish releases that came out in the early 2000s and stuff. I like had it in my head like Loving Cup was like very commonly the encore like this,
Yeah, of
and it
course
was
it
in
was.
it in my mind when I'm like, that's what I want. That's what I want. I want them to shred my face to pieces, and then I want Loving Cup to send me home full of love, satisfied. It was a great show, man. At that point, 7 shows into my first tour, it took my burnt out attitude after 7 shows 6 shows. It rekindled the drive in me, the flame in me, and got me ready for the next. I mean, the next few shows were Knoxville was amazing. Bonnaroo was Bonnaroo. I mean, Bessie sets. The Fox Theater after that was another real hard ticket and another great show. And then Burgettstown was phenomenal. And I mean, it rekindled. It reminded me why I was out there and gave me the fuel I needed to keep going.
Derek, thank you for taking the time, for carving out the time to go over this show that maybe, and I'm picturing myself, maybe at a time, someone who's been seeing them for a long time might just kind of gloss over,
Yeah.
when looking at different set lists. And because I haven't, to your credit, other than you, I haven't heard anyone really say, "Oh, have you ever heard Asheville 2009?" Yeah. So I'm glad that's kind of like one of the purposes of this show, to find people or to find shows and have people shine a light on shows that would otherwise be looked over and explain what it meant to them. So Derek, thank you for coming back and really giving us an insider's view of this show, June 9th, 2009, when Phish was just coming back at the Asheville Civic Center in North Carolina.
You're so welcome, man. I feel blessed to have friends like you and to be able to come on here and talk about the thing I love the most, anytime, man.
And that's it for today's conversation with Derek Hill. And as you could tell, Derek is a huge Phish nerd, just like I am. So there were a few things we had to go back and double check.
Attendance bias fact check.
Derek was previously on the podcast to talk about Phish's show from August 14th, 2009. At the time, the venue was called the Comcast Theater, and it is currently known as the Xfinity Theater. It was and will forever be the Meadows for those of us who have been on tour for a while. Derek's second show is at the Fleet Center in Boston in 2003. To be clear, the Fleet Center, now known as TD Garden, is a completely separate building from the original Boston Garden, although it is the natural inheritor when it comes to major indoor venues of the city. I was right about that Thanksgiving 2003 tour. For the 20th anniversary tour in 2003, Tom Marshall came on stage in Philadelphia to sing the lyrics for Buffalo Bill, one of the oldest songs that he and Trey composed together. If you want to hear a mini episode about the Dude of Life's appearance at the Nassau Coliseum on the same run, scroll back to some of the earliest episodes of Attendance Bias as I tell my experience seeing the dude sing Crimes of the Mind at that show. Phish debuted Life Saving Gun on July 30th, 2023 at Madison Square Garden during that lucky 7 stretch of shows. And that one is a hell of a debut. Check it out if you're not familiar. Meanwhile, Architect was last played by Phish on July 31st, 2013. As of this recording, it has been 514 shows since it's been played. When talking about Phish's comeback show in Camden 2009, Derek mentions that one of the co-hosts of the Stub Me Down podcast is a big fan of that song Sand. That would be JW, who never met a sand he didn't like. If you haven't checked out Stub Me Down and you like Attendance Bias, give it a listen. They're good guys, and it's a really good podcast. The debut of Kill Devil Falls was on June 2nd, 2009 at Jones Beach. Derek was right. It was deep in the second set after When the Circus Comes to Town and before a set-closing combo of Harry Hood and Loving Cup. Derek mentioned several times how the Asheville Civic Center is one of the smallest venues he's ever seen Phish perform. The official capacity of the venue is 7,654. Derek and I brought up Scott Morawski when discussing Max Creek, and it would make sense that Mike Gordon would be the first band member familiar with them since the band is from Massachusetts and so is Mike. Derek brings up a sit-in where Scott played with Phish in Mansfield, otherwise known as Great Woods. That was on July 13th, 1999, when Morawski played Possum with Phish and then came on for the encore of Lynyrd Skynyrd's Tuesday's Gone. And for the record, the Max Creek cover that Mike sort of tricked the band into learning is called Back Porch Boogie Blues. It doesn't look like Lawn Memo is keeping up with the Daily Ghost, as the last entry on his website is a write-up of the version played on August 14th, 2015 at Walnut Creek, but he did review this version from Asheville and gave it quite a positive write-up. And finally, Derek's memory of Trey playing with a Talkboy recorder with quotes from vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin did happen. just not at this Asheville show. He's confusing this version with the band playing it on December 28, 2010 at the Worcester Centrum, when Trey had a doll of Sarah Palin that recited quotes from the former Alaskan governor. And that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank Derek Hill for joining me today, Phish.net for their help with the fact check, the Mockingbird Foundation for everything they do, and Phish.in for the recording used in today's episode. If you enjoy Attendance Bias, please support the show by leaving a rating and a review of it on your favorite podcast app. And you can also go to www.buymeacoffee.com/attendancebias and donating anything you can afford. Thank you again so much for listening, and I'll see you next time on Attendance Bias.